Yeah, my name's Eduardo Duran. That's my American name, whatever you want to call it. And also I have my spiritual name is Josh Wapia. And then at 14, my family decided to find a good life, and so we moved to California, and we didn't find it. We ended up working in the fields, as migrant farm workers, and that was really hard. And that's when I decided I was going to go into the military, because I wanted to escape all this terrible life. Because also, my family was also pretty crazy, a lot of alcohol, a lot of violence. And so I thought, I need to get out of this crazy, violent family. And what did I do? I joined the military, which is a crazier, more violent family. And so that wasn't a very good choice. And so my choices up to that point weren't very remarkable, but everything that happened between military and education and all that brings me to where I'm at today. And now I wouldn't trade it for anything, even though at the time it was really hard and I really hated it. And a lot of times, the very first day of boot camp, I knew that it was a big mistake. And it was the first day of boot camp, and I thought, what have I done? This is really awful. But anyway, so shortly after I got out of the military, I started working for the military as an engineering psychologist. And basically what these people do is they help with the connection between a human being and a weapon system. And so I was doing that work for a while for the Department of Defense. But something wasn't right, and I wasn't feeling very good about myself. I wasn't feeling good about life, and so I went back to New Mexico. My grandfather had gotten really sick, and so I went to see him, and during that time he told me some stories, and I really didn't quite connect why he was telling me these kinds of stories, and because I was becoming a very modern person, very modern psychologist. And so I go back to San Diego where I was living, and I happened to go to a bookstore, and this was at a time when you actually went to bookstores because there was no Amazon. And so I go over to the psychology section, and I pick out this black book that is written by Carl Jung, and I started reading, just leafing through it, and I noticed that there was a lot of things that were written in there that my grandfather had talked about, and my grandfather had never really been to school, so I thought, how could he know this stuff that's in this book? And so I bought another one, and eventually I ended up in a clinical program. And it was, when I first got to this clinical program, that in the area where I was, there was a consortium of native tribes that lived there, and I didn't even know they were there. And somehow they knew I was there. I don't know how they found out I was there, because I didn't know anybody there and nobody knew me. And so they sent a request that I come meet with them. And I thought, well, I don't know any of these people, so I didn't go. And so another month passed, and they sent another request. And so after several requests, I finally said, I better go see what's going on with the people there. And when I went there, there was the health board and the tribal council. They were all there, and I wasn't even dressed appropriate. And it ended up being a job interview. I didn't know that's what it was. They wanted to start a mental health program, and they asked me if I could do it, if I wanted the job. And I says, yeah, I can do it, even though I never done anything like this before. And because at the time I thought that all you have to do is do kind of the linear training that they teach us in the Western way of thinking, is that you gather information, and then you analyze the information, and then you form a program, and then you implement the program, and then you evaluate it, and at the end of this, all the Indians are made well. And so that was my thinking. And so I started doing that. I made a survey instrument, and all of you have probably participated in surveys. And I had the community health representatives take these surveys out to the community, and thinking that, I'll get all this data, and then we can get this program off the ground and running. And a couple of weeks later, they brought stacks of these pieces of paper of this survey instrument that I developed, and I thought it was really a good instrument. And they were all blank. And so I'm like, well, you know, my whole idea of this linear thing isn't going to work because nobody wrote anything on these pieces of paper. And when I asked the community health workers, well, what happened? You know, how come there's nothing written on these survey instruments? The word that came back was that some of the elders said that the reason they hired me there is because they thought my grandmother taught me better manners than that. And what gave me the right to go around asking a bunch of stupid questions? That's what they said. And so I was totally devastated and felt really pitiful because, you know, I'm getting paid for this, and now the first thing that I try to do doesn't work. And so I started trying to do it another way by just observing, because that's another trick that they teach us in graduate school, is that you just pretend that you're not seeing anything, but you're kind of analyzing and you're diagnosing everybody. And so I tried that. And so I wrote another report, and in that report I came up with some of the things that Donna mentioned here earlier, Dr. Schindler, where she said, you know, the high incidence of the alcohol, the violence, the suicide. And so I had all this written in a really nice report. And I thought, now the health board and the tribal council say, now we can do this mental health project. But they looked at that report, and they looked at me and they said, no, none of these are problems here. And now I was really confused, because I could see with my own eyes that it was the problem, but they were telling me it wasn't the problem. So I thought the main problem with these tribes is the high level of denial. That's what I was thinking, because I know these are the problems. And they said, no, you need to go and bring something else. But now I used all my bullets, right, that I had from the Western way. I don't know what to do. And at the same time, people are coming to me for help. And I'm working up in the mountains, and my office was I don't know if you've ever seen one of these, but it was an IHS RV, a green truck, because there was no office, and so that was where I shared space with the doc one day a week, and then the nurse practitioner, and I was there 2 or 3 days a week. And then people would come to me, but I wasn't supposed to be doing any therapy because I was supposed to be doing this needs assessment. And so people would come and they said, we need your help. And I said, well, I'm supposed to be doing the needs assessment. And people said, well, we know what our needs are. We want you to help us. And so I would try, and I said, okay. I mean, I had taken counseling 101 and all that. And so I knew how to sit and kind of pretend to be listening and all that they teach us. And they would tell me the people that are coming to me had a lot of serious problems. I mean, not one, but lots of stuff going on with their life and family. And I would try to do the interventions that I was learning, you know, kind of behavioral, cognitive behavioral, and that kind of stuff. And when I would try to do that, they'd say, no, we don't want to talk about that. So they took that away from me too. And so I'm left with not a whole lot. So I said, well, what do you want to talk about? And they started saying, well, we want to talk about our dreams.